right?
All right. How's it going?
All good. Thank you. I don't know why I said thank you. Welcome to an episode.
What a start.
Of Send Better Emails. I don't know why I said thank you. Yeah, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome. Maybe that's what I meant to say. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. Anyway.
You've had a nightmare.
I've had a nightmare. Maybe it's because we're recording later in the day.
Yeah, maybe. Although I actually like having important phone conversations or recording podcasts later in the day, because I find that I'm like well practiced. Like if they're my first words of the day, I'm a bit raw.
Yeah.
Discuss.
I've had those days where you're at home, I don't know, your missus is away or something, and then you're at home alone, it's just you and the dog, and you find, I haven't actually said a word today.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, do I say a word now? Just like say my first word, even though it's like 3 p.m.
And then sometimes that first word comes out weird because like your vocal cords are so well rested.
Yeah.
It's like,
or someone calls you or comes to the door and the postman, you end up like growling at them instead of words.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's my birthday tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh, you really wanted to bring that up, didn't you?
Yeah.
At the
time, you don't like
that,
talking about your birthday, but I do like talking about mine.
At the time that people are listening, your birthday will have been and gone.
Well, yeah.
So, if you're listening to this and thinking, "Oh no, I didn't wish Jamie a happy birthday," then I'm afraid it's too late. It's happened.
You'd have missed it by one day. It'll be my birthday Boxing Day when you listen to this as a listener.
So, what you're saying is that the door is open for further birthday wishes,
for belated wishes.
You won't hold it against them.
No. Yeah. If anything, it would be nice because you'll message me and you'll say, "Oh, Jamie, I just listened to the podcast that came out today. Didn't realise it was your birthday yesterday. Great podcast, and really happy birthday."
Really happy birthday.
Really happy birthday.
Not even just a regular amount of happiness.
No.
A really happy birthday. Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go then. Out yourself as a listener if you happen to be listening today and you haven't wished Jamie a happy birthday already. Although, given that the only people that listen to this podcast are our mums, I would expect you've already received your happy birthdays from our listenership.
Yeah, I got a hamper from my parents arrived today.
Really?
Yeah. So I started like my new diet workout program like on Monday.
Yeah.
Which is yesterday.
Yeah.
And I got a hamper today for my parents for my birthday, and it's this big hamper full of cheese.
Oh, that's why you message asking me whether I'd bought you cheese.
Yeah, because my parents also didn't put a note in there, so I just had this hamper of cheese, and I had to message all of my closest friends and family, so that was you and my mum, and ask who sent it.
I mean, I wouldn't do that to you, Jamie.
What, not include a note?
No, I certainly would include a note. No, I wouldn't order you cheese.
To sabotage my new...
I wouldn't, yeah, exactly. You'd be getting protein bars. If you'd received, multivitamins and superfoods and that kind of thing, then you might have thought, okay, this got James written all over it.
Yeah, maybe multivitamins would be a strange gift.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's kind of
just trying to think of healthy stuff.
Like weight loss pills. Here you are, happy birthday, here's your weight loss pills.
Yeah.
Or you've got a sickly pallor, so here's some multivitamins.
I need some multivitamins at the moment.
I'll get you some Barocca. Anyway, I'm thinking the cheese can be used for the boat party on Sunday.
Yeah, cool.
So we'll have a little picnic there.
Yeah, Jamie's having a huge boat party on Sunday, and there's loads of spare spaces. It's like 100-person boat, and so if you weren't invited on that means he really doesn't want you there because like everyone's invited.
He's telling lies. It's practically a dinghy.
It's going to be intimate.
Yeah, and I think 10 people that will be on there.
10 people on a lilo, effectively.
Yeah, we're going to have 5. We'll have to double up.
Yeah.
It's going to be like musical chairs, but with laps. Okay, this is part 3 of our creator trilogy.
Yes.
So just a quick recap. what we've covered so far. So episode number one was why content creators must start newsletters. Part 2 was what content creators must write about in their newsletters. And we've kind of set a pattern now, or I have when I've named this episode. So what will the name of this episode be? And there has to be a must with capital letters in it.
Oh, okay. Then it will be what creators must do to move social media followers into their email list, or something like that.
Too many characters.
Yeah, all right. Well, you put me on the spot. I was improvising.
Sorry. Okay. Thank you. So we're going to talk about how you move a social media audience to an email audience. Because for me, this is one of because we start and run newsletters here for clients and for ourselves at the Inbox Club. And this is, I think, probably for me, the hardest thing. It's the most difficult thing to execute when it comes to starting a newsletter, and that is growing an audience.
Yeah.
And it is easier if you have a big audience elsewhere already that you're trying to move across, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to cover today.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So yeah, anyone listening to this who already has a social audience has got this huge advantage, because, as you say, Jamie, the biggest challenge for burgeoning newsletters is finding audiences that exist elsewhere that they can leverage, they can tap into, and they can sell their newsletter to. I use sell in a metaphorical sense there. So yeah, it's a massive advantage that very often isn't capitalized on nearly enough. And I suppose this episode is for those who have that huge advantage but aren't necessarily using it in the way that they ought to be.
Okay, nice. I think, we won't touch on it too much here. There are ways in which you can build a newsletter audience if you don't have that social following, and that
of course,
there is proof of us doing that very recently with a project, but it's about finding and borrowing other people's social media audiences, right, and converting those. But I think what we want to really highlight here is that if you have that social media following, like starting a newsletter and converting them into email subscribers really is a no-brainer. If you've got a substantial following, and we talked about this in the episode 1 of the trilogy, that, if it's on a social media platform, you don't own that audience, the platform does, and it's risky because of that. I think people with a following have this huge opportunity to convert those people into something that they own. And it's just so much easier. Do you agree with that, James? And what for you, what are some of the nuances perhaps around converting followers into subscribers?
Yeah, so I do agree with it. The biggest obstacle standing in the way of the content creator is that they create a newsletter, and we've seen this, by the way, on multiple occasions. I'm not going to drop any names because that would be harsh, but there are creators, plenty of them, that have tried to build a newsletter and they're almost resting on their laurels. And maybe that's a harsh interpretation, but from my perspective, it is as though they've created this newsletter and there's a hubris maybe that, oh, well, I've built an audience on insert platform, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever it might be. I've done it once, I can do it again. And, there is a tendency to overestimate how many of their social audience they're going to be able to convert. I personally believe that like a 10% ratio is pretty phenomenal. And if you can do that, then you're doing really, really well. I believe that there are very few excuses for creators not to get around 10% conversion. So if you've got 1 million on your social media platform, we're talking 100,000 migrating over to your newsletter. But it's going to take time, and it's certainly going to take more than just one post about the fact that you've launched a newsletter. And I think the common pattern is New creator gets really excited about newsletter. Creator launches newsletter. Creator posts about newsletter on their main social platform. Creator maybe sees a small migration over the low-hanging fruit, the people that really love everything they do. And then because it's not as much as the creator thought, the creator then loses enthusiasm for the newsletter altogether. And suddenly the promise of one newsletter a week turns into one newsletter a month, which turns into eventually it fizzling out before the year is out. So that's quite a common pattern. So the first thing I would say is don't expect that just because you have a big and loyal following on social media that they're all going to immediately come over to your newsletter and you're going to have 50% of your audience as newsletter subscribers right off the bat. It just doesn't work that way. You're going to have to work for these subscribers. You're going to have to be very intentional about the way that you move them over from your social media platforms. And if you're not, and if you don't have those expectations managed, you're probably going to lose enthusiasm for the project.
Yeah, and 10% is a great target because we spoke in a previous episode about we think, and the conventional wisdom is that newsletter subscribers are worth at least 1 in 10. I'm not saying this correctly, but so to have the 10%, so one newsletter subscriber is worth 10 social media followers. So if we're aiming for 10% as a conversion rate, that fits that maths. It's almost as if you did that on purpose, James.
Yeah, almost.
And I think that's maybe the issue is that social media it's heady, right? Because you can get big numbers on there and you post and you get lots of likes. But what we're looking for here is something more meaningful, more intentional. And, this mind shift of like, okay, well, maybe me getting X amount of likes is fine, but what if I got a 50% open rate on my newsletter, and what that actually means for intentional engagement from high quality kind of engaged super fans. And so there's a mindset shift there. But so what we want to do is we're doing this distilling process, right? And we're thinking about a funnel. We're thinking about going from social media to something more meaningful, and we're filtering and we're distilling the social media audience into something that's more pure.
Yeah, it's like making vodka.
Exactly. And I don't know how the triple distilled metaphor works there. We tend to get lost in metaphors sometimes, but
we do.
What's vodka made from? Is it potatoes?
It can be made from potatoes. I don't know if it's all made from potatoes. I thought it was like grain or something.
Okay, well, maybe let's say potatoes just because it's more fun.
Yeah, it is.
You've got 500,000 potatoes on social media.
Oh, you're running with this, okay?
Yeah. And 50,000 shots of vodka. Anyway, I'm getting lost in this metaphor. But what we want is this harder hitting. We want this more pure form of a following. And what we're doing then is we're creating something that our brand partners can sell into, our already existing brand partnerships can sell into. It's another place for them to be, and it's also you can charge more for those eyes as well.
Yes, and we go into more depth on that in episode 1 as well. So if you haven't listened to that, then I would recommend it, because we go into the monetization aspect of the newsletter and why it can almost be immediately profitable if you do it right. I think what you said there is really worth picking up on, which is this idea of headiness, the headiness of social media. And of course, I think a really compelling counter argument to investing loads of time in a newsletter is, well, with a newsletter, you always know the maximum number of eyes that are going to see it, right? You know that the maximum number of people that are going to read your newsletter is the number of subscribers that you have. And by the way, you're never going to hit that number. So yes, okay, we can talk about repurposing newsletters as articles, but generally speaking, that's the rule. With a social media post, there is always that potential to go viral. There's the virality aspect here, which you don't get in a newsletter, which means one social media post can completely change someone's life, and there are plenty of examples of that happening. And to that, what I would say is we need to reframe the thing that gives us the adrenaline kick that you get from like a viral post. You know, the newsletter equivalent of that is getting replies, is getting engagement. We need to think of newsletter subscribers in the same way that we think about hosting an event and selling tickets for that event, right? In that every single time someone opens a newsletter, they are entering into what is effectively a conversation with you. It's as near as you can get to being in a room with someone without actually being in the room with them. And therefore, if, 30,000 people are reading your newsletter every single week, think of that not as like, oh, well, my Instagram post got more impressions. Think of it instead as I'm selling out a football stadium every time I send a newsletter with people that are reading. That's the way to frame it. And when you start looking at it through that lens, it's super exciting every time someone clicks open, and it gives you that same rush. And I know, as someone who has a newsletter that is read by tens of thousands of people and also manages social media accounts that have tens of thousands of followers, it's way better to send a newsletter that gets a really great reaction than it is to do a post that goes viral.
Yeah, nice. I think we should clearly stress here that it's obviously, we're not talking about one versus the other, right? We're talking about both.
Exactly. Yeah.
And yes, you can get the maximum amount of eyes you get on your post on social media is higher than what you can get on your eyes with your newsletter, but that's why you need both.
Yes.
Okay, nice. What other angles do you want to look at this? I think we want to avoid kind of getting into specifics because it's quite nuanced in how different people might approach it in different ways, and also on different platforms as well. Are there more general practices? You spoke a little bit about consistency, right? And I think that is something that really might even be like the main takeaway here, is that one post about your newsletter isn't going to do it. There needs to be a strategy here where it's a pillar for us. It's a content pillar for us, and then we need to talk about it consistently. What are some of the other ways in which make not transferring, but attracting more people to your newsletter easier?
Yeah. So I think the blanket advice here is that if you've built an audience on Instagram or LinkedIn or Twitter or YouTube, whatever it might be, you are an expert in that platform in a way that the Inbox Club is not, right? Yeah. So we're not in a position to give you advice about what bangs on those platforms. You already know. You've probably already worked with brands. You've probably already had to generate clicks to something, whether it's your own product, whether it's someone else's product, like a brand partner that you're working with. You've already had to compel your audience into action. They've ultimately taken the decision to subscribe to you at some point, and it's likely that maybe earlier in your journey, but still now, you had to ask them to subscribe. You had to create content that people watched and then drive them into clicking that subscribe button. And that is no mean feat. And so the techniques that you use to do that, and I would guess that they are consistency, something that Jamie's reiterated. They are genuine recommendations. Your brand partnerships, the ones that banged the hardest were the ones that products that you genuinely used. You are able to incorporate these plugs into your day-to-day content in a way that felt natural and not too salesy, and in a way that circumnavigated any kind of algorithmic suppression that might happen through paid partnerships. And I would also assume that you were genuinely quite passionate about driving this action as well, that it genuinely meant something to you. And so with all of those things in mind, I think we apply that, and we just, instead of your merch, or instead of the brand that you're working with this week, instead we're talking about the newsletter. And really a lot of those tips and tricks that you already know when it comes to compelling your social audience into action need to be applied to your newsletter. And I think, again, to go back to it, part of the problem here is that a lot of creators don't treat their newsletter like a product. They don't see it as a they don't see it through the same lens that they see merch or that they see a brand partnership. They don't see it as something transactional and something that can ultimately make them money. And I think when we start looking at it through this monetizable behemoth, this newsletter business, this newsletter empire, as opposed to just this other place where I make content, it's suddenly much easier to be consistent and to keep it banging that drum and to incorporate it into your socials and to put effort and thought into making your newsletter plugs genuinely good and compelling.
Yeah, I love it. And I think what's so exciting for me is that we are seeing more and more content creators and talent and celebrities creating these newsletter platforms from which to communicate with their key audience. And some of the names that are now producing newsletters, it's mind blowing. We're talking about A-list celebrities that have newsletters, and I think it's a trendy thing right now. And I think what's so attractive about a newsletter audience is that it's so much easier or a newsletter business is easier to sell than a social media following, right? So it's kind of easier. You can monetize on your own terms, but it's also something that can be a business in its own right and can be movable from there. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, like there are celebrities that start newsletters, creators that start newsletters, and their newsletter is very intertwined with their personal brand, and that makes a lot of sense. And there's no problem with that at all. But it's that much harder to sell if the opportunity ever came by, because it's so intertwined with their personal brand that potential buyers might be scared by that fact and might think, I don't know if I can continue this. But then you have Gwyneth Paltrow, for example, who started the Goop newsletter in 2008, where she's, I'm going to mention it in every podcast now, where she has, she has distanced herself from that brand. And okay, a lot of people still know that Gwyneth Paltrow is behind Goop, but I'm sure there are plenty of subscribers who didn't realize that Gwyneth Paltrow was behind it, and that becomes a much more sellable entity. So that is something to consider as well. I think if you are going to start your own newsletter as a creator, you're doing it probably less because one day you want to sell it, and more because that from a newsletter you can launch loads of other monetizable streams, like brand partnerships, like premium products, like selling merch, like courses, events, etc. And that wasn't to contradict you, Jamie, because you're absolutely right. I just want to make it clear that I think if you're a creator and you're thinking I can get to 10,000 subscribers and then just flog it for 50 grand, that might not necessarily work.
Yeah, agreed. And if you want to find out why James loves Goop so much by Gwyneth Paltrow, you'll need to listen to the bonus episode, which I think will come out after this.
Oh, yeah.
Cringy cliche bonus app.
Yes.
And it has to do with candles. I think we'll leave it at that. Okay. I think, should we do a hot take and then we can wrap up?
Yeah, let's do a hot take.
Okay. I don't know if I have one ready. Do you have a hot take ready?
No.
No. Okay, fine. Let's just play for some time here.
Actually, Jamie, I will say one thing to buy you a bit of time, but also because I think it's important. When it comes to the 3 pillars that we talked about in last episode around what a creator ought to include, I think one of those can be really leveraged for transferring social media audiences across, and that's exclusivity. This doesn't count as my hot take, but I just want to stress that exclusivity is probably the tastiest carrot that you can dangle to your social media audience in order to get them across. And the real success stories that we've seen in the creator space, where they've been moving social media followers across their email list really well, it's been when they have not only teased what's going to be coming up in the newsletter that you can't get from their social media content, but after the newsletter has been published, they've also used content from the newsletter in their social media content and said, people who read the newsletter already know this and stuff like that. And that makes it really compelling because, I think anyone who follows a creator wants to be in the inner circle. And so that exclusivity element, I think, is particularly important when it comes to moving subscribers across.
Okay, nice. You've bought a sufficient amount of time there for me to come up with a hot take, so thank you.
Right.
So yeah, hot take then. So I think, mine is, I'll try and make this quite short. Mine is, if you are a content creator with a social media audience and you are promoting a newsletter, you should be promoting it more than once a week on your social media channels.
Okay, nice. Drawing a line in the sand.
I'm happy to build that hill and figuratively die on it.
Yeah, okay.
And as long as it's a painless, quick death.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think the only exception would be if you're a YouTuber who only releases weekly videos, for example. But I'm being petty.
Well, shorts.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Come on, expand your mind.
I forgot about shorts. Sorry. This is why we're not social media experts.
Yeah.
Okay, my hot take is going to be that there are too many. My hot take is going to be that any creator that starts a newsletter only to give up on it because it hasn't immediately rushed to 100,000 subscribers after one post, I would say that's a form of arrogance, and it's lazy. And the phrase, and I've mentioned it in a previous podcast, the phrase, if I build it, they will come, does not apply to newsletters. And anyone who thinks it does is going to be severely disappointed.
Nice. Okay. That's actually a common misquote, isn't it?
Oh, really? Have I just done that?
No. Well, no, I think it just gets, what happened to our hot takes, by the way? They were a bit spicier than usual.
Yeah, well,
I remember calling people arrogant.
Yeah, well, after last episode, do you remember we said the hot takes need to get a bit hotter?
We were going to start rating them.
We're going to start rating them, yeah.
Okay, what was mine?
Yours was a 3 out of 10.
Oh,
you didn't insult anyone, so.
Post about your newsletter more than once a week, you lazy shit. Now what's my rating?
Immediately a 6. You've just doubled it.
Now I know where I need to be.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say yours is like a 6. I'll give yours a 6 as well.
Yeah, I'd say I definitely don't deserve anything more than that.
Yeah. Okay. Fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Go watch Field of Dreams, and get that quote right.
Yeah. Happy birthday for tomorrow / yesterday.
Thank you. What? Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, as in it'll
We're
be
straddling
time
and space, and I got confused for a second there.
Yeah. What do you think? You get one guess. What do you think I bought you for your birthday?
You've bought me something.
Yeah, of course.
A course of what?
Of
weight
course.
loss pills.
I said, yeah. I said, of course.
All right. What have you bought me for my birthday? I'm going to say, has your girlfriend had input on this?
She's, her name's on the card.
Okay. So you got me a card.
Well, no, her name's on the metaphorical card.
In that card is a voucher.
Okay. What for? You want to go any further than that, or?
You got me a voucher to buy some clothes.
Okay. All right. Well, find out on next week's episode whether Jamie was correct.
God, what a cliffhanger. Make sure you don't miss that.
I know, right?
Okay, well, thanks, James. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Cheers.
This is where you say thank you, not at the start of the podcast.
Yeah.
It'd be like end of the podcast.
Maybe we should end this podcast by saying welcome.
Yeah, welcome, everybody.
Okay, welcome.
You are welcome for the past 29 minutes as well. Okay, let's call it.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Welcome. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.